Welcome back to the morning show. Well, ever since Prince Harry and Meghan Markle got together, the internet has been awash with headlines. And as every facet of their lives has been scrutinised, the Duchess's father, Thomas Markle, has also found a way into the spotlight.
Now, ultimately, their relationship suffered and Meghan allegedly cut him off. But who is responsible for fracturing the family ties? And when it comes down to our own flesh and blood, how easy is it to spot toxic behaviour? Well, so many questions. To help us break it all down, we welcome psychologist Sabina Reid from Melbourne. Lovely to see you again, Sabina. Whether there's a royal connection or not, and for most of us, there's not. No family is immune. So how do you define a toxic relationship in the first place?
Yes, Larry, I think it's important to acknowledge that there is some level of toxicity or at least conflict in all families. And by that I mean we have pain, we have differences of opinion, we have low empathy, low compassion at times. And I think when we experience that in our family members, it's easy to point the finger as if one person is to blame. And yet I think it's helpful to look at the whole family system, acknowledging that in some ways each of us contaminate and contribute in healthy and unhealthy ways.
It's not like you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. But what are the red flags to indicate that there might be bad blood within your family?
Well, one of the signs we often see is gaslighting, and by that what we mean is that we're getting others to question their own reality or perception, but not in helpful ways. We might also see patterns of secrecy and avoidance, and we'll also see high levels of control or blame or criticism. And alone, these behaviours are unhelpful. We need to not just diagnose or label what toxicity means, we need to find ways to manage it.
OK, so once you've recognised the difference between conflict and actual toxicity, what are the next steps you should take? Because if you deal with this incorrectly, then that's going to lead to a negative escalation, of course, right?
Yeah, I think empathy is probably the number one thing we need to bring to the table here. But we need to speak up. When we're in pain, when we blame another for our pain or when we're suffering ourselves, it's very easy to withdraw from the situation or to say nothing or to ruminate. So the first message here is to speak up. But we do need to create boundaries for ourselves, and that's about looking after our own well-being. Sometimes we get embroiled in the toxicity and we go down with the ship. By minimising alcohol, what I'm talking about here is setting ourselves up for success. So when we have conversations with difficult loved ones, make it as best as possible a scenario, and alcohol's not going to help. We need to express how we feel, what the impact on this relationship and this dynamic is on us, and how we would like it to be different. And of course, there's always the importance of seeking a third party if it just becomes too difficult, too toxic, or too challenging to have a conversation with a person that's creating pain in our lives or is obviously or usually suffering themselves.
Yeah, Sabina, but what happens if we do all of those things? And they're very good tips there, and it cannot be mended. How do we cut ties, and when do you know when it's the right time to do that?
I think we often demonise this idea of estrangement and cutting ties as if we've failed in some way. Blood is thicker than water. We all know the sayings. There's this expectation that families live happily ever after. Unfortunately, that's not the case for everyone. So estrangement sometimes is an okay option, whether it's short-term or long-term. We can limit contact with the person. Some people who have difficult relationships with family just say, I can do it once at Christmas, but not throughout the year. We need to learn how to end an exchange, whether that's end the relationship or even just end an escalating phone call or meeting or conversation, so that it's got a beginning and an end, and putting a time limit can be useful on that. Yeah. Do not tolerate abuse. If it escalates to physical, emotional or psychological abuse, then we need to draw a line in the sand. And I think at the end of the day, to expect if we do cut ties with a loved one, there will be both grief and relief. There'll be sadness, there'll be loss, and there'll also be a sense of not being in the firing line as the target or as an observer.
Yeah, it is a very difficult thing to do, but such an important conversation to have, because many, many people have difficult relationships with family members. So thanks for your time, Sabina, and for shedding a bit of light on that.
Good to see you, Sally. Thanks, Larry.